This is Big Island Video News for Tuesday, August 7th, 2012. I'm Stephanie Salazar. Once again, the Hawaii County Clerk's office is fielding questions from the media about personnel matters and the proper administration of the county elections process after the latest rumors of firings and absentee ballot mishandling.
She's asked whether or not Odetta Shimotsu and or Lena Alali have been terminated. And I have explained that I cannot answer that question. She would have to follow up with Altress.
Clerk Jame Kawauchi invited media to the council chamber to discuss logistics prior to Saturday's primary election. She also wanted to discuss how the early walk-in voting, which began on July 30th, has been going so far.
So as of August 4th, I can tell you that approximately 2,500 voters voted as walk-ins. As of August 4th, approximately 20,000 absentee mail ballots were mailed out.
But it didn't take long for reporters attending the meeting from Kona to begin asking about problems at the Kona Elections Office.
Well, there's a difference between early walk-in voting locations and the ability of the Kona Elections Office to accept absentee ballots, which they were accepting up until somebody terminated the one employee who was there. Obviously not you, Jame, since you've denied it, but as of today, there is no way to turn in an absentee ballot in Kona, right?
The instructions for return of absentee ballots is by mail, U.S. mail, hand delivery to our offices in Hilo, or the other option would be to return it to a polling location.
Right, but up until yesterday, they could be returned to the elections office in Kona, and they no longer can be, correct?
That is not an option.
So would you characterize the situation as not running as normal because there's been a change?
No, the change is that persons were to return the ballots as I've described by U.S. mail or by hand delivery to our offices in Hilo or return to a polling location.
And why?
Because the early walk-in voting site at West Hawaii and Waimea and the one in Hilo are not considered polling places. So we are not accepting ballots there. And so that's the reason why.
But is it true that up until yesterday they were being accepted at West Hawaii Civic Center?
There were some ballots that were received there, but that is not the option that voters should be following.
Well, I understand, but is it not true that up until last night there was an employee or a person in the Kona Elections Office who would validly accept absentee ballots, correct?
There was a staff person there who was receiving ballots, but that instruction actually was not to receive ballots there. So we advised all of our all of our early walk-in voting officials not to accept any ballots at West Hawaii Civic Center, Building G.
It was around that time that journalists in Hilo, in particular Tiffany Edwards Hunt of the Big Island Chronicle, began hammering Kawauchi on rumors that more election staff were let go in recent days.
We didn't have a media or public relations specialist. We had somebody who was helping us to arrange for media, but we never had a media or public relations specialist.
Nobody told her that.
That's Lena Alali, who is technically a temp worker who was working on PR stuff. She's no longer here?
Well, Lena Alali, again, that particular person you have to talk with Altress, her employer.
Over the past few months, Kawauchi has declined to answer questions on the firing and subsequent reinstatement of longtime elections administrator Pat Nakamoto. Nakamoto and 3 other elections employees were accused of violating county alcohol policy at this warehouse on Maka'ala Street. Big Island Video News has corresponded with Lena Alali in the past. In her email, she identified herself as Public Relations and Media and a part of election staff. Even with the absence of a detailed explanation on those questions, the clerk hopes to assure the public that elections will be on the up and up. These walk-in sites will be open daily from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., including lunch hours. All 101,000 plus registered voters on Hawaii Island can cast their vote there until the last day, which is August 9th. An important part of the Hawaii County Police Department's quest for accreditation took place at the county building in Hilo on Monday evening. Police officers stood at the ready outside the Puna conference room where testimony was accepted during a public information session. The Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies Incorporated arrived on the Big Island on August 4th to examine all aspects of the police department's policies and procedures, management, operations, and support services. According to the police department, the team's verification that the police department meets the Commission's state-of-the-art standards is part of a voluntary process to gain accreditation, which is a highly prized recognition of public safety professional excellence. To gain accredited status, the Hawaii Police Department must comply with 421 standards. The public information session was part of the on-site assessment, and most of the members of the public who spoke are known detractors of the police department. Many involved in litigation over what they believe to be wrongful enforcement of marijuana laws. According to a police media release, the assessors are Chief William Benson of the Wheeling Police Department and Sergeant Charles Groover of the Covington Police Department. Once they complete their review, they will report back to the full commission, which will then decide if the police department is to be granted accredited status. Accreditation is for 3 years, during which period the police department must submit annual reports attesting continued compliance with those standards under which it was initially accredited. It's a 4-person race for the County Council District 6 seat. The newly drawn district is by far the largest on the island, stretching from Volcano Village on the east side all the way across Ka'u and up South Kona to Kealakekua. Brenda Ford, who is already on the council representing South Kona, will face challenges from Bradley Westervelt, Miley David, and Lee McIntosh. Recently, the 4 candidates introduced themselves to a crowd at the Kealakekua High School cafeteria during a candidate forum moderated by Sherry Bracken.
You know, once in a while people call me a politician, and I always object, because I'm not. And I think if you watch the county councils, you can tell that I'm not.
Ford has been a staunch advocate for West Hawaii, and now she will be seeking to represent towns that are closer to East Hawaii in orientation. In fact, many consider Volcano Village to be in Puna. Hard to believe for a representative who has gone toe-to-toe with the Hilo voting bloc over the years.
I call it like I see it because I feel that I'm very, very honest, and I want to let people know that there might be a different way of handling something.
Still, Ford promises to play nicely with others if elected. After all, she would be the senior member on the governing body.
I think it's my responsibility to set the tone as one of the senior members of the council, and I believe that we should be working together. If you look at my voting record, you will see that on the council, I've voted over 625 times yes, and about 29 or 49 times no, and on the committees, it's 400 and something to 29 or 30 or something like that. I believe in voting positively on something if it is good for the county, if it's good for the district. I do not vote against people, and I do not vote against any issue just because it's been brought up by someone that may not agree with me. I always give every issue a fair, impartial analysis, and I vote accordingly.
Experience and aloha, and I believe that is important for anyone to serve in a public service.
Meanwhile, one of her opponents, lifelong Kona resident Miley David, says her experience makes her ideal for the job.
My grassroots community advocacy, my legal experience, and my council experience gives me a great opportunity to serve as a council member.
David focused more on her paralegal background during this forum in Kona.
My 30 years paralegal experience really taught me a lot. It taught me discipline, and it taught me how to negotiate with people, and in a professional manner. I've also incorporated into that my personal belief that I was raised to respect everyone, respect their opinions, and do things as you would like done to you.
Soft-spoken Lee McIntosh is a resident of Discovery Harbor in Ka'u. He owns and operates Gopher Lee, a local landscaping business. Here, he shares his vision for the district if elected.
A community where businesses and families can thrive regardless of the economic situation. And I hope that you will consider me for the county council when you vote August 11th.
While Pahala resident Bradley Westervelt said he brings a diverse set of skills shaped by a lifetime of experience in the private sector.
Part of the reason I got talked into running by my community is I bridged the differences between several groups that were trying to put on a ho'olaule'a in our neighborhood a few years back, and I ended up being the arbitrator that brought peace to the whole situation. I enjoyed that experience, and then found that I ended up playing that role quite a bit for several other nonprofits in the community.